Well, here we are. We're on week 4. Last week we talked about repentance and moving away from things to building and cultivating something new. And this week is really about disruption. And that is stirring up current embedded structures and systems in our own heart, in our own families, in our churches, in our workplaces, in government, in different places, stirring it up to make things more equitable for everybody. And so in some of our current political system that I just want to name, some of the principles of disrupting power are getting used as a narrative that we're the ones that are tearing down, disruptive power systems. But a big warning on that. And the reason why it's not the same is because disrupting power to overpower other people is not the kind of power disruption that Jesus was talking about. Jesus' disrupting power is about disrupting power so that all can experience greater equity and true liberation. And so when mixing up the power system is just for people to get a little higher and to get a little more control, it's our true warning that it's the wrong direction, in my opinion. And so it's really important when we're talking about disrupting power that we are working as followers of Jesus, as people of faith, to disrupt systems that harm and oppress and limit people on the underside of power. So people who are on the underside for reasons of race, of gender, of who they love, of abilities, of socioeconomics, of health, and realities of all the things that are so strong in our culture of able-bodied, white, Christian, male supremacy is so strong in our culture. And so that's why all of the systems, when they move here to a hierarchical way, which is exactly what was happening 2,000 years ago, and Jesus was trying to bust out, is stall play today. And so disrupting power is trying to break that to create more equity. We will never achieve perfect equity, in my opinion, but we can, in little pockets and in the wider system, little pockets begin to make a big impact. And it does always start with us. Sometimes, my son said, you can't change the world, but you can change someone's world. I think about that a lot. We can't change the world tomorrow individually, but we can change something in the worlds that we are each in now. And all of those little pockets of change should change the world. And that was always the idea behind the message of Jesus, is that the little small underground pockets would have incredible influence in the wider world. And then it has, obviously, Christian thought has really emerged as, clearly has dominated across culture for many, many, many generations. However, the biggest question for us is what we see, is that really a true reflection of the big idea that Jesus had and Jesus embodied? And for most of us, we'd say the answer is no, it's not reflective. We've adopted the exact power systems that Jesus was trying to disrupt. So how do we do that? How do we disrupt power? It looks so different for all of us, but I think there are some core principles that can help us. And I think it really does start with Angela Davis, the activist, who said, I am no longer accepting the things that I cannot change. I'm changing the things that I cannot accept. And I think that that's something for all of us. I've been thinking about this a lot in the current political landscape and what it means for me as a leader, as a wife, as a mother, as an advocate, as a person who is really dedicated to centering people on the margins. What does it mean for me? And so what does disruption mean for each of us, I think, is a piece of this week to ponder. I really do believe that it starts, though, with telling the truth. And really telling the truth. And that takes a lot of courage, especially in some of the systems that we're in, because when we tell the truth, we lose something. And so we might lose something practical. We could lose our jobs, which has happened to me before. We might lose respect, which has happened to me often, which might lose relationships. This has happened to me also and is very painful for me as a person that loves to stay connected to people. But sometimes when we tell the truth, we lose something. And that is really crucial. And I know that for me as a people pleaser, as somebody that really does like to keep the peace, learning to be more disruptive about issues that really matter to me has helped. And there's been a cost. I think of this conversation that I had one time with some leaders at a church that I really love and respect and have really goodwill towards, but asked me an honest question about what do we need to be thinking about related to patriarchy and women in leadership. And so I told the truth. And it honestly was not that deep and painful. It was a simple truth. And that was just to maybe look at their blind spots, to look at blind spots. And what was so fascinating about it is that I got defensiveness back, and then I literally never heard from them ever again. And we were connected for many years. And I really do believe that this is what happens a lot of times when we tell the truth. But you know what? It just made me want to keep telling the truth. And I think that this is the piece, is that if we stay silent in the face of oppression, if we are people who want to be change agents and really want to catalyze something different, we've got to be willing to tell the truth and to live with those consequences. It looks different, the whole range for us. Sometimes it's just saying the truth in the smallest way in your closest relationship. Sometimes it's more public. It's in your work teams, your groups, your faith communities. It looks different for everybody, but telling the truth is a core way that we can begin to disrupt power. Also, if we start to follow under-resourced, underheard, typically unempowered leaders that have so much to teach us as people of privilege, it is core to begin to follow and learn and listen and submit ourselves to others' leadership. In that same way, sharing power. Any of us who have it can give it away. At the Refuge, that's our very core principle, where most of the leaders who are nurturing the community really don't have the floor all the time. It's actually about giving the floor to everybody else, having people lead in different ways, share in different ways, use their voice in different ways. And it's not like me holding the microphone and giving it over to them all the time. It's just like a culture of this is what we do. We share together. And the more we share power and give power away, the more that it multiplies, exactly like loaves and fishes. And then just this reminder that all of this is practice. And so we will advocate in different ways and try and stir the pot in different ways and make room in new ways and all those things. And we'll stumble and we'll bumble and things won't go the way that we wanted them to do. But that's what practicing is all about. None of this is masterable. And I think that is a core principle in everything related to Jesus, is it wasn't about one and done. It was about an ongoing life of practice. And really, in the words of John Lewis, who I love, was just stirring up good trouble. Not once, not twice, but just as a way of moving in this world. And so for those of us that are disruption adverse and who like security and who like comfortable, it's really hard to disrupt the systems. However, I believe we're being called to, and that we need all of us, because a lot was on the line then, and a lot is on the line now for people who are marginalized by typical systems and need us to be willing to disrupt power, not to get more power. That is unhealthy, oppressive, hierarchical power. No, to disrupt power that provides equity and releases folks and creates liberation for all of us together. That was always the ways of Jesus. As we wrap, I think the biggest question really is related to good trouble. And that is, maybe how are we hunkering down and just writing things out, maybe staying under the radar? Or Are we stirring the pot in small ways, big ways? Are we using our hands and our feet and our actions to disrupt power, using our voices? Are we getting into good trouble with consequences that are important to be able to receive, especially as people of privilege? That's our question. Stirring up good trouble.